The show where anything goes. Motivation, mindset, recovery, philosophy, and life. We become who we are through what we experience. We all have a story, and this is My Backstory with Josh Boyer.
All right, here we are on the My Backstory podcast, episode number 25. Here with Mr. Dave Capra. Little backstory on how I know Dave. I actually played football with Dave's son Nick, and gotta tell you, man, guy's a savage. So I grew up with Nick, and I didn't spend too much time with Dave, but I would hear about like what kind of dad he was, and like I was like, man, how's Nick so tough? Like I've honestly, like, out of the guys I grew up with, Nick has got to be like the most mentally strong person I've ever encountered. I mean, the guy, he's hiked. I mean, I don't even know how many he's done. Aconcagua, right? He's done Denali. He's done a shit ton of mountains. I mean, the guy,
Machu Picchu, Kilimanjaro.
Oh yeah, he's all over the place. But anyway, I wanted to share. Actually, Dave reached out to me and kind of shared a little bit of his story with me, and I was like, wow, we got to do a podcast, because if you want to talk about mindset and how you overcome and get through things, Dave has got all of that to share with you guys. So I'm going to let him share his backstory with you, and where he grew up, and how he transitioned from just being a family guy, having kids, getting into politics, and having to encounter some horrible like medical issues, and how he overcame all that and what he's doing now. And so I'm going to let Dave share his story. Let's go take it away.
All right. Thanks, Josh. Yeah. Let me just say, it's funny that we mention Nick and tough mentally and whatnot. And I will say, I do get a little emotional at times because of my life, but to just touch on that little part of what you're saying, I'll run you through a quick little background to get to where I'm going with this. I was born in to an Italian family, and had two older brothers, older sister, younger sister, 5 kids. And I was raised old Italian fashion with nothing but discipline, and there was no negotiations, just straight discipline, hardcore. And my dad always taught me, if you want anything, you're going to have to work for it. There was nothing that was going to be free rides, anything like that. You want a little extra than what they would give us at Christmas or birthdays or whatever. You'd have to go work for it. Didn't matter what it was. If I wanted a G.I. Joe or whatever, a new bike, I have to bust my ass to get there. So I did that. And so a lot of the ways that I raised my children was through no compromise, just work your ass off. You'll get there. Well, anyways, I remember when I was 18 years old, and I was offered a job doing pipeline construction, doing heavy work, heavy construction, nothing I'd ever experienced in my life. And my 2 older brothers had bought a house, and they said, hey, you want to move in with us and shit? And I'm thinking, I don't know. And I remember the day my brothers were sitting there, they had their shit in the back of their trucks, and they're sitting there like they're drinking beer and all this and partying and everything. And my dad says, you walk out this door, you are not coming back. You make up the choice is yours. So once you walk out this door, you're on your own. And I said, well, Pops, I'm on my own, brother. I'm going. So I did. And the next day, man, that room was already converted into my dad's art studio. But anyways, I had an upbringing of a lot of love in the family, Parents were really special. I was really, really close to my mom. I could share anything and everything with her. My dad, not so. My dad, wonderful man, but he was kind of quiet. My dad had a story of his own, and I don't really want to bring that up because it wouldn't be right. But anyways, so I move out, and let me back up, because a part of this story is about recovery as well. I'll never forget my first drink. And I remember the day, and I was 13 years old, and I had a Budweiser, and I was at this little party, a little junior high party, and I drank that beer, and it tasted pretty raunchy. And then the guy that was having the party, and I said, "Hey, man, this shit didn't do anything for me." He says, "Try another one, watch what happens." And I drank it, and the way that I felt was absolutely pure, loving euphoria. I said, "Oh my God, I love this shit. What is it?" Well, anyways, fast forward the clock. So I became a heavy drinker at a young age, drinking all the time, any chance that I had, whatnot. And the story, behold, is my dad was a recovering alcoholic at that time,
Yeah.
So, I had to be pretty sly on how I took that on. Well, anyways, so I move in with my brothers, and I'm doing heavy construction, and obviously, I'm working with guys that were much older than me, and every day was drinking. We'd labor in the sun all day long, and I was laying pipe in these deep trenches, and grinding it, working hard. Well, anyways, life was starting to move pretty rapid at that point in time. I moved in with my brothers, and I'll remember the first month I was there, my brother came over and said, "Hey, brother, where's the rent?" And I said, "Rent? Well, you ain't living here for free." And I said, "Oh my God." And so anyways, I learned life. Here I am, 18 years old. I got to go get a checking account. I got to start figuring this shit out, So I get a checking account, and then all of a sudden I was, drinking a lot, and I was getting in a lot of trouble. So I said, "Man, I got to really kind of slow down a little bit here, So I get involved with my first wife, and lo and behold, I'm I'm having a child at 19 years old.
Right.
And I said, "What the hell? What do I know about children and becoming a father?" Well, my son was born, and I had read a couple of books along the way on Dare to Discipline, Tough Love, on how to be a father, And I knew that, well, I did want to be like my dad, but I want to be the way that he was a disciplinarian. And so, therefore, I raised my kids with a lot of discipline, and there was no fooling around. And I remember some of the things that I used to do to my kids. Well, I'll share Nick, because we talked about him, and and he's in the first grade, and he's learning to spell, and he'd miss a spelling word, and I said, "You got to write that thing 25 times," and then he'd write the word, and I said, "No, you got to make your letters straighter," and no, and this and that. Anyway, it's just really hard, and he would be so upset, but I would drill it in there, and he became what he is today. Very, very successful businessman. Well, anyways, so I get through. I had two other daughters at the time. So I've got a total of 3 kids, and life's moving around pretty rapidly. I had my own business, and this yada yada yada. That's not where I want to get into, but where the rubber meets the road is. I took a job with Glendale Water and Power, and because I wanted the pension, I wanted the benefits, I wanted the easy workload, whatnot. So I thought. Went to work for the city, got involved in city politics, ran for city council, got elected to city council. I was on planning commission for 9 years prior to city council, and was into politics quite heavily for a while. Everything was going good. My life was really, really, really doing great, man. I got the top of my pay scale. I was doing a job that was a dream job. I was making good money. Everything was happening. Everything was beautiful. And after 23 years of marriage, get a divorce. Not going to go into that story, but my kids decided to stay with me. Not, so I finished raising my daughter through high school and going and doing all the things that a father would do for a woman, but I was wearing the the dress at that time, going and buying prom dresses and stuff like that, But anyways, so I get divorced. I meet my wife, who I am now presently married to, one of the most amazing women in my life. But so here's how it goes down. 6 months into it, I start having these weird visions in my eyes and stuff. It looks like I'm looking underwater. So I go to the doctors, and they said, oh, maybe it's your blood pressure. Give me some blood pressure medicine and everything else. So anyways, I got to fast forward this because I'll never get through the whole story. But anyways, make a long story short, I was misdiagnosed for 6 months. Well, the night of June 28th, 2008, I suffered a massive stroke. It was in the brainstem, the worst possible place you could have a stroke. That's your brain control center. Well, anyways, I woke up in the middle of the night. My eyes were in opposite directions. I couldn't see. I was shaking. My wife says, "What the hell's wrong with you?" I don't know. She worked at Arcadia Methodist, close. We were about 3 miles away. She said, "Get on my back." I got on her back. She threw me in the back of the car, got me to the hospital, and they said, it's not good. My body was shutting down. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. Everything was shutting down. The last thing to go was my breathing. And so the doctor at that time, neurologist, said, you better call his family. It's not looking good. I don't think he's going to make it. Well, anyways, family shows up. They're crying. I can't talk. Eyes are in opposite directions. Can't see, I moved. A half hour later, I made a movement, and they thought, oh my gosh, this is a miracle. And so anyways, I go into rehab, and it was such a journey how I share that, how things could be so perfect in my life. Everything was going so good, and it was taken that fast. I couldn't even wipe my own ass. My wife had to do it. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I had to learn to walk. I had to learn to talk, swallow, everything I had to do, And I don't
mean to interrupt, but I think the craziest part about that, we talked about it a little bit before the podcast, was that during this time while you're having the stroke and all these things are happening to you, like you can't swallow, you can't talk. Your mind is still there though.
Yes.
So you're like, I want to say these things, but I can't talk. And it's like, that has to be the most torture that you could possibly endure, man. That's crazy.
But here's the one thing, and I could share, and this is where we talk about being pushing and being in a certain mindset. I was totally coherent. I knew what was going on. I was totally legit. But what saved my life was a young nurse was in that room in the intensive care, and she came over and she says, sweetheart, don't worry. You're in good hands now. You're going to be fine. And I said, okay, I'm in. I'll fight. So that was my only option. There was no other options. I had to fight, right? So anyways, here I am, a young guy, and then they're saying, most stroke patients are much older. You're a young guy. I was 48. So anyways, I go through all this rehab, and I mean, I could spend a lot of time on that, but I'm getting through this as fast as I can because just if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But yeah. So I get through that part of it, and I had been put through a barrage of tests to figure out why I had the stroke, what caused it, and to this day, they still do not know. And I remember, it's hard to imagine being a strong man. I used to do triathlons. I used to be a bike rider, surfing, golfing. I was a very active person. Now I couldn't even stand up. I couldn't walk. So I had no choice, but for hours at the middle of the night, I would sit there. Nurses have gone home, and in the hospital, I would crawl like a little baby, holding on to that bar so I could learn to walk. If I was going to get out of the hospital, I had to walk. So anyways, I got through that part of it. I stumbling and crying. And when I left the hospital, I told my wife, this ain't going to work. I threw the cane that they gave me. They had to give me. I threw that cane in the trunk, and it sits in the trunk of the car today. I never used it.
That's awesome.
So anyways, I do all these tests, and everything is going great with rehab. And I have such a team of doctors, therapists, speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and everything. And my mind's telling me at this time, shit, I want to be back to 100%. I knew that I wanted to be where I was and pick it up from there and keep going. So I go to my neurologist and I said, you got to put it to me straight, man. What's my outcome? I got to get back to work and I got to do all these things. And he says, okay, here's the situation. And you listen to me. You have brain damage. You will never be 100%. Would you be happy with 90%? And I said, man, I'm all in. I'm all in at 90%. Just tell me what I got to do. Yeah. And that's where I'm at today. I mean, you look at me, you couldn't say, hey, you had a stroke?
No.
Okay. Well, so as the story gets on now, now I'm at home, and this little voice in my head says, hey, man, let's go back to your drinking. That'll help the pain. I had such pain, Josh, that it's hard to explain unless you've been there, man. Like, I felt worthless. Right. I lost everything. I couldn't, my job, I had to retire, forced to retire. Everything's caving in on me. And I remember the neurologist said, hey, you will be facing some depression. I think you need to get some help. And I said, well, my help is going to be in a 12-ounce can, and 16 ounce, the more the better. Right. So I started fueling, man. I couldn't stop. I started, drinking and drinking. And knowing that my family tree looks like Jack Daniels, my mother or my grandmother, my grandfather died of alcoholism. My uncle's an alcoholic. My dad's an alcoholic. My sister's an alcoholic. And I said, man, I'm looking like I'm headed that direction. But I was in such denial, because I had a good friend of mine called my ego. And anyways, one day I'm sitting on the computer because I was doing a lot of self-diagnosing, man. I wanted to see, what my limitations were going to be and whatnot. And so I looked up depression and I did the self-help test. My wife comes home from work and I said, hey, honey, I said, got a problem. She says, what's that? I said, it's not tying my shoes. I said, I've got severe depression. She says, okay, that's no problem, man. We'll work it out. So I go see a doctor and he says, hey, we'll give you a couple little Prozacs, if you want to try it, but you do have depression. So I went to stress therapy. Now I'm going to psychotherapy, and I'm going all these frickin' therapies, and nothing was better than the old Budweiser, man. That therapy was doing me right. So I started drinking more and heavily and started ruining my life. And I don't like to share about it, but I have an eye issue, and I was prescribed some baclofen, but I couldn't take the baclofen. They were too strong, and I would just be, just a heap of a man in a chair, Yeah. And so one day, I didn't have any liquor in the house, so I looked over to those pills and I said, hey, man, I got a prescription of these Xanax and baclofen. Let me try a couple, and they didn't work. Well, lo and behold, I downed the whole bottle of Xanax, a full prescription. I took a whole prescription of baclofen and 80 Tylenol, and decided to call it a night and go to bed. Well, my wife and I had an argument. She was sleeping in the other room, and the next day I had locked the bedroom door. I had overdosed, and she went to work the next day, and I didn't call her. She didn't call me, whatever. So she tried to get in. So she had to go through the bedroom window, and there I was in a coma, and she called 911. Well, that day, it so happened to be my youngest daughter, Courtney, was on the way over to my house to take me to a meeting. She says, my dad needs help bad. And when she got there, she says, where's my dad? My wife says, well, you see that ambulance? He's in it. He's overdosed. He's in a coma. He ain't going to make it. So here we go back to the hospital, 3 days into a coma. And the doctors had said, yeah, and then this guy's, he's fried his brain. There ain't nothing left. He's not in good shape. Yeah. And so anyways, I look in my eye and I see my daughters there and my wife sitting there. And here I am. And I start crying. Oh, he's waking up. Joy for them, sadness for me. Right. So now I'm really a wreck. So anyways, they come in and they pulled the tube out of my mouth. And anyways, make a long story short, I was in the hospital for 3 days of evaluation, a psych eval, and here we go again, more doctors, more tests and everything else. And so I get out of that part of it. And the one thing I'll share, Josh, is that, we make mistakes in life. And that was the biggest mistake I ever made in my life, because I can't answer why or how or why I even do that. I can't answer that.
Right.
And then we talk about having that mindset of, where are you going from here? What the hell is going on? So anyways, I start getting help, and I get involved in a program, AA, and saved my life. I just celebrated 6 years of sobriety on Monday.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. So anyways, so now that's two X's on my record, and I'm thinking, man, third strike and I'm out, and so my life has been just so in a wreck, and I talk about trying to put myself and putting my shit and straightening out, and now I got to make amends to my family and friends and all this. And I'll never forget my youngest daughter that came to take me to the hospital, and I said, hey, I got to make amends to you. Really, she says, hold it right fucking there. I'm not ready for that shit, man. You really fucked up.
Yeah.
And she left. And I said, oh shit, And it took a while for her to come around, and I couldn't talk to my son. I couldn't talk to my older daughter. I had to prove to them that what I was doing was right. I'm cleaning up my act, Yeah. I had to clean up the wreckage of my past, So anyways, as time's progressing and things are getting good and I'm clean, I'm sober, I'm feeling really good. I still got the stroke issue, I still haven't fully recovered from that, nor will I ever recover, but doggone it, man, I'm a man and I'm going to fess up to all my wrongdoings and stuff. And then I said, look in the mirror, and I'll always say, and like I told my kids, I'll tell anybody, if you don't love what you're seeing in the mirror, how are you going to love anybody else? If you don't love what you see, then damn it, you're going to have to change. Yep. So I said, okay, put on my big boy pants and start changing. So I started changing and doing all these good things. Well, anyways, I get involved with working with stroke patients at the hospital. My heart now is I like to give back. I've always been a decent person. I don't have many enemies. Good guy, but I have to find out who I really am and search for my soul. Because, until you experience something that takes you down, and I mean, everybody has a story, and I just want to be remembered as I always push my kids, man, be the best you can be. And that's all you can do. Yep. And so here I am, I'm pushing and I'm doing all these things. So at this time I tell my wife, you know what, man, I'm ready for a change, babe. Let's sell this house here and let's me and you go build our dream house in Texas, and she has family down there. That's why we chose Texas. So I sell my house furnished. We left with one pickup truck full of stuff and we headed to Texas. I had my car shipped down there. We go down there and we build a beautiful home in a very, very nice neighborhood. And my wife and I were sitting there one day at Thanksgiving and then Christmas looking and said, my God, where's our family? Yeah. And nobody's here. Right. It's me and you. And boy, we love each other, but we love our kids too, Yeah. So decide well, you know what? Let's sell the place. We're headed back to California. So we list the place, took a major hit financially to get back to California. And we landed here in Palm Desert. We bought a place. We renovated it into what it is today, Then life is going good. I thought everything is great. I feel great. Life couldn't be better, Move back to California, be close to family. And here's where the real trust comes in, my testament and my inspiration. The day we moved in, I get diagnosed with follicular lymphoma, stage 4 follicular lymphoma. And if you don't know what that is, it's bone marrow cancer, stage 4, my bone marrow. And at that point in time, I said, man, I need some real help on this one, right? So my wife and I had a bucket list, a cruise that we were going to be taking. Everything was paid for, ready to go. And we were leaving within 2 weeks. And when I was diagnosed, they said, nope, you're not going anywhere. You start your treatment, chemotherapy, on Tuesday. And like I shared before the podcast, Josh, that here's how it plays out. 16 of us were all diagnosed with different types of cancer, and we're called basically the class of 2016. Out of the 16 people, 11 of them have passed away. There's only 5 of us survivors left. So if you sit and you ask yourself, if you have 16 people in the room and they told you only 5 of you can walk out here alive, which 5 would it be? Do you think you'd ever think into your mind it's going to be me? Well, anyways, that put me down a little bit, or I should say a lot of it. I went through my chemotherapy, burned up my veins so bad that I showed you a picture. They couldn't go in my arms anymore. They had to start going in through my hands because my veins were collapsed and no use of working. Well, anyways, so I go into remission, and that's where I'm at today. I'm in remission, and everything's feeling good. I'm back to doing all the things I want to do. I'm golfing, and everything's going great. And I said, man, there's that 3 strikes. Boy, I'm out of it, and I'm clear. I'm in remission, man. Everything's going great. Well, son of a bitch, man. I reached down and I said, man, my hip really hurts down here, my groin, And so they thought it was my lymph nodes, and then they sent me to a orthopedic doctor, and sure shit, man, I have to have a total hip replacement on the left side. So if I hadn't been enough, I said, man, here we go again. Here's this mindset. Well, anyways, I get through all that shit, piece of cake. And you know who pushed me harder than anybody? Nick. My goddamn son, man. He said, man, that ain't shit. And I remember what he told me when I said, hey, I got this cancer. And he says, shit, man, you got through that stroke. You get through this. I said, you don't understand. He says, no, you don't understand. Yeah. You have got to, you beat that. You can do it. You have to change. And between my son and my wife is the most positive person in the world. And I really believe today, the law of attraction, man. Positive brings positive and negative brings negative. And I was very, very positive, and I still am to this day. And so now, after all of these trials and tribulations and everything that I've been through, I'm going back to what my heart truly desires, and that's to be an inspiration to all these other people that suffer. And I started a stroke support group over at the hospital over here in Palm Desert, and I work with stroke patients, and we have a stroke support group. And that's where I devote all my time, is work with patients within the stroke community, and it's really gratifying, a good feeling of who I am. And I mean, like I said, when you lose sense of who you really are, only you will be able to tell that. I mean, people look at me and they say, "Oh man, you're great. You're this and you're that." Well, don't judge me, man. I'm telling you, I'm not all that in a bag of chips.
Right.
I still have my issues. Okay. But there's one thing. I have that mindset you talk about where I put myself in another category because it's only me is what matters, and not in a bad way. It's that I know my story. Right. I can share with somebody. I like, because I'm doing rather well, and God willing, God's blessed me that I go to my stroke support group, and I actually have people calling me out and saying, "You didn't have no stroke. How could you look like that and be like that and do this and do that?" And I said, "Hey man, this is 10 years of hard work."
Yep.
And guess where that came from?
Mindset.
My kids, man, you cannot give up. You drive and drive and drive, which brings me to this present day right here, right now, where I have decided, my son-in-law's a surfer, and I used to be a surfer myself, and I still am. And my goal is in July that my son-in-law and I can hook up and surf together down at Huntington Beach.
That's awesome.
And that's my goal. And whether I can or I cannot, I'm going to give it a run. I'm going to give it the best thing. And here I am at 48 years old. And I'm sorry, 58 years old. I feel like I'm 48, but no. But I'm trying to, I know I'm kind of messed up because all these thoughts are running through this scrambled brain of mine that I have a real will to live now.
Yeah. And
anyone that's ever been on that other side of a dark rabbit hole, as you would say, of feeling self-worth, knowing whether you want to live or die or whatever. Well, as I have grandkids now and I have a wide group of friends, I want to live more than anything. So it's my goal is to, I've already started. I've lost 16 pounds. So I'm going to be cut in awesome physical condition so that I'm going to be, hopefully paddling in the water in July to set the bar high for myself to achieve. But Josh, I got to say one thing. With all of the podcasts that you've had, and I've listened to all of them, it has put me in a different state of mind to listen to other people's stories. And everybody is mentally tough, and I fit into the group, and I feed off of what they do. If they can do it, I can do it. Even though they're much younger, now the shoe's on the other foot. I'm asking my children for advice. I'm asking you for advice. I can sit and tell you I am loaded with a shit boatload of wisdom.
Right.
But do you want to sit and listen to it? Maybe not. But there are some that do. Right. And I mean, I have changed the way that I do things. I journal. I've been journaling for 3 years. Someday when I'm feeling down and out, man, I just go back to my journal and I look at the progress that I've made.
Yep.
And I'll be dead honest with you. With the type of cancer I have, it could take me in next year, could take me in 2 years, 5, 10 years. I don't know. It's not a curable cancer. It's just treatable. Right. So if it comes back, I am back to doing the chemotherapy regimen, and that's just the way it is. But I fight every day to be the best that I can be. And if I was to pass on anything to anyone else, is look at the bright side of things. Man, when when I thought my back was up against the wall, and I knew it was, and you get through it, as they say, as this shall pass, then you're faced with something else. Then you're faced, and I thought to myself, this last go around, man, how much more of this shit can I take? Yeah. And I look at one thing, I said, you know what? I think I could take just about anything, but I could tell you this, I'm living proof of that. And I don't look for no one's approval. I try to blend in just like everybody else. And that's my own hang up. I mean, I don't have the best coordination with my left hand, so I might hit some things here and there, but I got a heart and I got my vision. I got my brain. I'm doing pretty good. And I'm not done yet, because when I do meet my goal, you'll be the first guy that I call back and say, hey, check out this old guy right here, man.
I love it.
And it's because of you and the podcast and everybody that's been guest on there that motivates me. Yeah. I wish I could be in a room with all of those guys and thank each and every one for what it's done to me.
Yeah, for sure. So when I started the podcast, that was the whole kind of intention, I guess, was that I wanted to I always thought about having a mastermind group, of guys that or girls that I could draw from, and be like, man, these guys are like a huge inspiration. And I had no idea where this podcast was even going to go. I was like, I'm going to reach out to a couple people and see if they want to do an interview. And it's just morphed into this awesome, in my opinion, just an awesome podcast of people sharing their stories about mindset and how they overcome and how they get through things. And your story is phenomenal. It's crazy, because I think most people in your shoes, going through a stroke like that in your brainstem, and it's you're not going to recover. And people are going to believe that. They're going to believe what they're told by somebody in a white coat, because that's a doctor and they give them a lot of power. Sometimes rightfully so, and other times it's to your detriment. And I think that for me personally, I've just never been willing to accept limitations that somebody else puts on me. It's you don't get to tell me what my limitations are. Sometimes it's going through disability stuff, with insurance companies and whatever. It was hard in the beginning because they want to see what your medication is. What medication are you taking? I don't take anything. What? You don't take any medication? You must not be in pain then. Okay. Same thing, people telling you haven't had a stroke. It's the same thing with me. They look at me. There's no way you've had 6 back surgeries. No way.
Yeah.
I can lift my shirt up and show you the scars if you'd like.
Yeah, but you see, here's the interesting thing from my side. You have hell of a story, just like all these we all have stories, right?
Right.
But the thing that trips me out more than anything is I sit back and I said, oh my God, you were one of the kids that I was coaching and this and that. And they all looked up to me, you're the leader and you're this and that. Well, you know what? I look to everybody else that's younger now as for the advice and for what drives me.
Right.
It's funny. And it's just how it comes full circle, because each one of my kids and my extended family, my wife has children as well. Right. Everybody loves me now more than I ever anticipated, Yeah. And so it's if I can offer you a little bit of wisdom, great. But you know what? I got some questions I'd like to ask from you, what I can learn, because I still try to learn something new every day.
Absolutely.
And I'm not better than anybody else. I just want to be better than myself, what I used to be. And like I was telling you, Josh, I love quotes, man. And there's so many ones that I do want to share a couple with you if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one of the biggest lessons I've learned from my journey is you can't please everyone, so don't try.
Right.
A man who never made a mistake never made anything.
This is true.
And then this one goes out to everybody that means everything in my life, but is nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
I like that.
Our true self is being who we are, and pain is temporary. The pain you feel today is only to get you strength to face tomorrow. And I mean, I can't go all on and read all of these, but they're so motivation for me and to to just be the best I can to help other people. I want to give back and leave my mark. I mean, I've got plenty of alkaloids in my office to say who I was and where I whatever. But you know what? You don't know me until you sit and meet with me, and I never would have thought. And it's just amazing. I can't just appreciate how much your podcast mean to me, that I was searching and seeking, and then here I see this Josh Boyer, and I'm saying, my gosh, I remember that guy. He was a crazy son of a gun, man. And, and wow. And he's doing this stuff. And then and I said, man, I gotta get in contact with you. And I did. And it's been one of the best things I've ever done, because I put that story out there, whether it works for anybody or not, but it's something that, hey, there's hope. Right. And you have hope, faith, and trust, man, and it'll carry you in many directions,
For sure.
But I really appreciate you giving me the time to put my story out there, man.
Absolutely. I think it's, like I said, I think it's fascinating. I think it's one of those things where mindset is a hard, like I was talking to somebody about it the other day, how you can develop a mindset, but it's very difficult to take somebody who quits a lot and then takes them to be a winner. It's hard to do that, to get somebody to develop that mindset. You can incrementally put little tools in place to try and teach them. But sometimes it's just an innate sense of willpower, an innate sense of discipline and strength and courage to just get through shit.
Yeah.
And hearing your story, having the stroke, that had to be fucking one of the most terrifying situations ever. Because you're with it, you're with it. You know what's going on, and it's what the fuck is happening to me? I can't move my arm. I can't move my body. I can't talk. Now I can't swallow. That'd be frightening as hell. And to come back from that and to know that no, I'm going to recover.
Yeah, here's one of the things I wanted to share with you also is that I remember some years ago, this guy was talking to me, and this kind of relates to where I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
He says, hey, Dave, what are the 3 biggest things in your life right now? And I said, well, my sobriety, my family, and God. And then he comes to me the next day and he says, Dave, what are the 3 biggest things in your life? And I said, well, my sobriety, God, my family. Well, on the 4th day, he says, dude, man, I got to tell you, you got a problem. I said, well, what's that? And he says, your ego is not your amigo, brother. He says, you are so egotistical. Why can't you put yourself in the front of everything? Why don't you put God in front, or your family or something else? But no, you got to talk about your sobriety. Well, we know about that.
Right.
But so that relates to when I was having the stroke, and that, I had an ego. For Christ's sakes, I had the key to City Hall. I was the mayor. I had people do it. I call the county sheriffs and get that done for me. I call the fire department. I need that, and then you have all this power, quote unquote, but I wasn't into that power trip. Right. But it did affect my ego, thinking, wow, you're pretty tough guy. Well, you had the stroke and it knocked you down to who you really are. And so you build yourself up, and which that brings me to the next thing. And I'd like to ask you a question as to,
yeah.
I have my answer, but when did you realize that you were in the winner's circle?
That's a great question. I think as it relates to my surgeries and stuff like that, I would say that after the first surgery, I had 2 back surgeries, like I told you, within 15 days. And I think at that time I just knew that I was going to recover. I wasn't willing to accept limitations. I just wasn't. Part of that was being young and stupid, and just I was just doing things still that I shouldn't be doing after following back surgeries and whatnot, like fighting and just carrying on and just being an idiot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I never really thought about that. When did I know for certain that I was in the winner's circle? And I don't know, man. I've never really given that too much thought. I always knew that I was different, I guess you could say. When I was going through football stuff, there was nothing that anybody could do to me that was going to make me quit. I just wouldn't quit. I was just a guy that just was going to keep going. And I shared the story before, but when I got to boot camp, they would make you run and do push-ups and whatever. But I remember thinking while I was there, like, there's nothing that you guys can do to me that's going to make me quit or going to make me cry or break or whatever. And they actually wanted to send me to a psych eval during boot camp. Well, because I didn't laugh, I didn't smile.
Is that inner pain that you had, or were you just calloused?
I'm very black and white. Like, everything is very black and white for me. I'm not like I've there's some humor in my life, and like I find things funny, and I have a sense of humor. But like when I'm in the zone of trying to accomplish something, I don't have time for minutia. So like things that are like going on around me, I don't pay any attention to it. Mm-hmm. So like going through boot camp, like, the instructors would come in, drill instructors, and they would make a joke and everyone would be laughing or whatever. And I wasn't playing along. It was like, I'm here to graduate. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to hang out with you. So I knew that my mindset was just a little different. Even at that time, I was like, I'm just different. Like I want to do my thing. I'll be friendly with people. I was the, they call it the dorm chief in the Air Force, but like you're in charge of like your entire dorm. And I just was in my zone, and I knew that I was good to go. So when all the things started happening to me medically, I started to ask myself, what part of the equation am I? Like, I'm the common denominator with all these things that were happening to me. The back surgeries, I had some family law issues that I had going on. I had, issues with my family growing up. And I was like, well, what side of that what part of my side of the fence do I need to take care of? And that's where I think it all shifted for me, because I started taking ownership of everything. Okay, I need to be accountable and take ownership for my side of it. Yeah. So like the back surgeries, it's like, yeah, like some of that can be congenital. Some of it could have been like my dad had a bad back, so I have a bad back. Sure. A lot of that could have been, though, I don't think I've ever shared this on a podcast, but I'm going to share it now. A lot of my back surgeries were my own fault. And when I say my own fault, I mean, I almost sought them out. I was so depressed and I had so many issues going on internally that back surgery, although my back was legitimately messed up, I probably could have avoided some of them, but instead I went through with some of the back surgeries just so I could escape reality for a little bit. Mm-hmm. It was a huge part of my addiction.
So you were chasing the pain. You're a little masochistic, sounds like, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. I wanted to know that like mentally I could still do it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know that I could recover and bounce back and still do the things that I was doing before. And it was almost like I was having a conversation. Again, I've never shared this before, but like I was having a conversation with God or like my higher power, saying like, hit me with your best shot. What do you got? What's next? And I was almost like it was almost like a self-loathing kind of weird, twisted ideology of like, what do you got? Like, I'll take what you got next,
Okay, but with that being said, then where do you consider yourself right now? Are you in total control and you're headed on that next level or what? Because to me, hearing your story, I mean, you've been through a lot yourself, right. But it sounds like, and the reason I asked you when you found that winner part of it, you found it quite some time ago, right. And you're going to continue to be a striving winner regardless, no matter whatever comes your way.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, and the reason I asked you that, because I found that, and we both talked a little bit before going on the podcast, is that we both have very strong work ethics.
Right.
And I think that makes us who we really are. I'm sorry to say it, but discipline and working hard brings out the best of you.
Yeah.
And I mean, because we both know there's a lot of lazy people out there that would just appreciate being given everything. Then there's the other ones that bust their ass and are very successful in doing so.
For sure. I think, once I started taking that ownership and like owning like my side of stuff, a different side started to open up to me and being like, oh, like I've probably brought a lot of this shit on myself. I started doing this on my own. And I think a lot of it was, and that was not just with the back surgery, that was like everything in my life. Like if things were good or too good, I would almost like self-sabotage those things because my life wasn't chaotic enough for me. Like I was fucking bored. You know, I was like, I'm too bored. Let's see. How can I fuck this up? How can I totally like make this like completely go sideways? And there, you know, there easy way to do things, hard way to do things. I always chose the hard way. Never the easy way, ever.
Yeah.
And why? I don't know, masochistic or whatever, but I was just like, I just enjoyed the grind. I enjoyed the pressure of it. Coming back from this last back surgery, I would say that like it was number 6, you know, it was the most extensive one I had because they had to break through an old fusion, do a new fusion. They went through my stomach, they went through my back. It was like 12-hour operation. So it was pretty intense.
Wow.
And I wasn't going to take any pain pills. I was like, nope, I'm not taking a pain pill. No way. And so in the hospital, I took the pills that they gave me while I was there. But when I left the hospital, I didn't take another pain pill, like not even an Advil, no Tylenol, no nothing, like at all.
Wow.
And I did it, number 1, because I'm, you know, a masochist or whatever. Like I enjoy pain, but it's not like I enjoy pain because I'm some kind of weirdo. I always want to know where I am mentally. Like, where are you mentally? What can you stand? What can you withstand? What can you get through? And I have to be testing myself, because if I'm not testing myself constantly, I'll get bored. And I really do feel like, I forget what that quote is. Idle time is like the devil's playground or whatever. So I need to constantly be like testing myself, or I'm going to go off the deep end and do something absolutely retarded. So I'm just pushing myself every chance I get. And setting new goals. Like, okay, what's the next goal? Okay, you know what? I'm going to do, like, I just did that 11-day fast, you know? You know, a lot of people, do 11 days of not eating. Like, how do you do that? So you just do it. You just don't quit. That's it, you know? And like, you might feel like shit. Like I was definitely hangry, you know? Like,
I know that feeling.
I was super, I was like mad at my wife. We were actually talking about this last night. She, you know, we have a 5-month-old baby, you know? So he's sleeping in the room with us, and he'll wake up, you know, once a night or whatever for her to, you know, feed him. And she has like a little wedge pillow that she puts on the bed and then props up 2 other pillows so she can sit up while she feeds him. And so I think it was on day 5 or 6 of the fast. And she gets up and moves the pillows, and I'm like, holy fuck, you know, like, why would you have to like slam the pillows on the bed? Jesus Christ. And she's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I'm getting up with this baby at like, you know, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, whatever. And I'm sitting there bitching at her about throwing pillows on the bed too hard. And I knew it was, she knew even that it was just, I haven't eaten for 6 days. So I'm a little like edgy.
Is that when you were doing the smashing greens?
Yeah. So I did the smashing greens fast, and that was our integrity challenge. And I did it mainly, well, I think the hugest part for me was the integrity part. I love the fact that Mitch called it the integrity challenge, because I was like, I went out to Virginia Beach to do a couple podcasts with some guys, and Ray Kerr, Jeff Nichols, I think were the 2 that I had interviewed while I was out in Virginia Beach.
Yeah. Good dudes. I love those podcasts.
Yeah. And I had met Mitch while I was there, but we didn't do a podcast the first time I was out there because he was on a fast, and he's like, you know, I just don't want to do a podcast right now. I was like, I totally get it. But it really highlighted for me my shortcomings hanging out with those guys. Like, it really made me realize, like, dude, I need to level up again. You know, I've been kind of going through the motions, and I haven't really been pushing myself enough.
Yeah.
So when I got back, Mitch had just started that Smashing Greens Integrity Challenge.
Okay.
And so I was like, all right, let's do this. And so I signed up to do it, and that was that.
Do you journal at all?
I have one right next to my bed, and I keep saying that I'm going to do it.
Yeah. You know what, it's really good. And I mean, I only speak for myself, because I find that the thoughts I have in my head, and I put them on paper, and it's get thoughts out of the head, you know, and put it down there. And it's kind of funny if you do it, then you go back and look, you know, for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Pass. You said, oh man, that's pretty, you know.
I really would like to. I'm going to start journaling. I mean, it's literally sitting on my nightstand. It's there every single day, and I have a pen right next to it, and I just haven't picked it up to start journaling. But I think it's
I can, and I will, baby.
I like it.
I like
it. No, it's one of those things, man. I that's the beauty of this podcasting, is like, I'm gonna leave this podcast with you and be like, wow, those are some gnarly takeaways. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you know. I got one other one, and it's kind of a funny one, but I'll just share before we wrap this up. But I was told yesterday, hey, you know, don't hold your farts in, because they travel up your spine, they go to your brain, and that's where you get your shitty thoughts.
No, it's funny. We actually, again, talking to my wife, I've been one of the things I've been telling her lately is that a lot of times I'll censor myself if I'm out in public or whatever, someone will, cut me off or bump into me or whatever. And I'm like, man, I want to tell that asshole, like whatever. But I'll keep it to myself. Cause like, I don't want to go down that road. It's all good. And I said, I don't want to, it's like holding in a fart, it's like, I'm not going to be that guy anymore. If someone like does something deliberately to like piss me off,
yeah,
I don't need to be a dick about it, but I can just tell them like, hey man, like have some respect, be cool, whatever. And I feel like that's freedom, just being free to just let it all out and get it off your chest and just say what you're thinking.
Yeah. And the best part about that is, Josh, is being sober doing it.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I mean, I just find myself now just let it go, and as long as, if it's not, okay, I do have my own boundaries. Just don't cross them. Yeah. But you know what? If it's not me, I can't change people, places, or things, man. Let it go, man. If you're in such a hurry, knock yourself out,
Right.
Because the older you get, man, these little things, they irritate you a little bit more.
Right.
So you have to find a little bit more, I guess, whatever you want to call it, to be able to release it and let that shit go. Otherwise, it's going to eat you up, man.
Yeah. And I was finding that a lot of stuff was like getting to me, whether it be like family shit or outside stuff, that I was biting my tongue and I wasn't saying anything. And again, like one of the guys I did a podcast with was like, don't leave anything unsaid. And he actually wrote a book. His name's Joshua Coburn. He wrote a book, The Shit That Needs Said.
Yeah.
And it's basically, that's what it's about. It's like the freedom of just throwing it out. If you respect somebody, tell them. If someone like hurts your feelings or, rubs you the wrong way, tell them.
Yeah.
Don't hold on to any of that shit. Let it all out, you know?
And that's freedom. The biggest thing though, is being honest with yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And hey, honesty, you can't get in trouble for being honest, and if anybody else has a problem with it, that's on them, not on us,
That's their stuff for sure.
That
you talked about the ego earlier and how, your ego is not your amigo. And I like that. And it was, I was thinking about that with the whole, like all these back surgeries and shit. And other things that I had gone through. And I was like, a huge part of a lot of that, I think for me mentally, was my ego took a huge hit because I wasn't this strong, big, powerful dude anymore. I was, I had some limitations physically, not mentally, but physically. I wasn't capable of, deadlifting over 400 pounds anymore or doing things that I used to be able to do. And, with that comes a lot of fear, because you're like, oh shit, like I'm not as capable as I used to be.
Yeah.
So I think the last year, that's been the journey of, number one, getting comfortable in my own skin. Obviously getting sober. And that was a huge part of it because that was a mask for me. It was like, whether it be the opiates and all the pain pills I was taking. Okay, well, that's done. Okay, well, what's next? Well, we'll graduate to alcohol. So we'll just do alcohol all the time. So whenever I be out in public or wherever, it's like that was the lubricant for me. It's like you just drink and you don't have to worry about too much. But this year has really been about like the sobriety and then just owning my demons and saying like, where you at? Being honest with myself. Like you said, look in the mirror. And if you're not happy with what you see, like if you don't love what you see, you're not going to be capable to love anybody else,
That's exactly right, know.
And it's huge. And doing the podcasting and stuff like that and hearing other people's story and getting them to share like, hey, these are the things I've learned along the way. You know what I mean? Like, cause for me, like I don't journal, but this podcasting is a journal for me. Because I go back and I listen to them like over and over and over again, and it's for me, it's like, it's never going to go away. This is going to stay forever for my kids to listen to, for me to listen. It's saved forever. It's digital. And I love that about it. I think it's great. I want to ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
The first one being, if you had one book or a person that like inspired you the most, whether it be through your recovery, with alcohol or with the stroke and the cancer and the hip surgery and everything else, if you had somebody that inspired you the most or a book, who would that be or what would that be and why?
First of all, it would be my wife. And because I say that, I thought I knew what love was, and you don't really know love until you really feel it. And I can't speak for anybody else, but she has been with me through all of the most miserable days of my life.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for her to pick me up, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And when I say that is that I could call her right now. She would come home. She would do anything for me as I would do anything for her. You know, and it's just an amazing bond that we have. We joke about it all the time. We go to bed and we laugh at each other. She's my best friend. She's everything. And she has her own story prior to me meeting her, what she went through. And she is very, very, very strong with the mindset. And I learn from her every day.
Right.
And that's one of the things, once I fleshed out this egotistical bullshit where I had to actually sit and listen to somebody else. It wasn't Dave's show.
Right.
Man, I mean, in my life, I ran the show, man. I was the shit.
Yeah.
I was the director. I was the cameraman. I was the actor. And I was getting all these accolades and awards. It was me and my ego. We did that. Well, man, now that I woke up and I've been through a few things, I look back and say, man, that was just a facade, brother.
What would you change? Like, looking back on it, what would you change about all that?
I would say I probably, that's a hard question for me to answer because there is no answer. I'm sorry. That's tough to really change anything because if I was to change anything, I think I maybe would have done a career change somewhere along the line.
Right.
But I was always a happy person. I never was a blamer. I took the heat for anything and everything that I did. And that was my ego, man. If I got into trouble, I'll pay for it. Don't worry about me. I'm held accountable. If I was in trouble, I'm accountable. I'll take the rap, And if I could have changed things, I think I wish I would have flushed off that a little bit different because I found myself being a people pleaser too,
Right.
I'd do things for anybody and everybody. But I also was an old Italian man. Sometimes there was a string attached. Don't do me wrong,
Right.
Sleep with one eye open in a way. But it's some of that stuff I think I would have changed some of the ways that I acted. And that was all influenced by my ego.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have no problem admitting some of my faults these days. I don't have any problem, I should say. Hey, I'm a lot better today than I was yesterday.
For sure.
And tomorrow it's another day, and I'm going to put my best foot forward and give it all I got. But I just sit here and I'm looking across at you and I'm saying, man, I just can't believe I'm here with a guy that's a young guy, a young father with these wonderful kids, and I'm talking to him, and man, you don't know what it means to me that doing this, Josh. It's an amazing to be able to share with somebody. I don't go sharing to anybody,
Right.
And I'm not looking to either.
Right.
But when I saw your thing, I mean, if I could hit one person and say, damn it, that's a little bit, if that one can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like you with everything you've been through. And I don't know if I could ever take that much pain without a pain pill though, but I'm just great.
No, I'm really excited that you came on because I think, everything happens for a reason, what I mean? Like, and I think that, when you reached out to me, when I started the podcast, I was like, I'm not going to discriminate on who comes on the podcast. You know what I mean? It's all about people coming on and sharing their story.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, like when we talked on the phone before I came out here, I was like floored. I was like flabbergasted. Hearing your story. Some of the people that have come on the podcast, I think I might have shared this with you, but I don't talk to like the people before I interview them really. It's like, hey, you want to do a podcast? Yeah, let's do it. Is there any preset questions? Nope. It's all just free flowing and a conversation. We get to know each other and it's all good.
Yeah.
You share your story. I try not to do most of the talking. I let you do most of the talking. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but either way, I don't know these people. They're sharing their story and I'm floored by it. And I think a lot of people want to be heard. They want to share their story. And by sharing their story, I think it opens other people up to be willing to share theirs.
Oh yes.
And there's healing in that. It's cathartic, you know, to go and to be like, hey man, this is my shit, and I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna share it, and hopefully it helps somebody else along the way, you know.
Yeah, and
awesome.
that's what it's all about too.
For sure.
Let's put it. There's so many self-help books and this and this and this and this. But what we do and what you're doing, this is the raw deal, man. This is going right from the horse's mouth. You know, you hear it and be truthful and honest, and that's the story.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm gonna ask you another question.
All right.
I'm gonna reword it. This is gonna be the first time I reword this question. Actually, I've reworded it a couple other times, but this is like I'm gonna change moving forward how I ask this question.
Okay.
I always ask people if they had one regret, what would it be and why? And I ask it because I wanna like learn from people. I was thinking about the other day. I said, I want to change that question. And so moving forward, the way I'm going to ask it is, if there was one lesson that you learned in your life, the biggest lesson that you learned. Could have been through a regret or whatever, but the biggest lesson that you learned in your life that you would want to impart on somebody else, what would that lesson be and why?
It would be, you build your own security. I was taught that early on in the trade that I was in, that you got to work for everything you got, which I got instilled from my father. And when I first was in construction, if you want to be around, you build your own security. It's on you. You bust your ass, we can always use you. And I'll tell anybody that if the harder you work, someone can always use somebody busting their ass and that's willing to do the work. Yeah. And that's what I tell anybody. I tell my own kids, man, you got to work your ass off. You know, you don't. Now there are some people that are gifted that have things fall in their lap, but guess what? Not on my side. There hasn't been any of that shit. Everybody, my kids, everybody in my family, everybody has worked to where they're at. And that's, it's funny. Both of my brothers and my sister, their kids, they're all ball busters, man. They all, went to school and they're all thriving now. And I get together with my brothers and my sister and we say, thank God we were raised the way we were raised, man. Look at how everybody's done, Yep. Yeah, I might be a screw up, but hey, my kids are doing all right, you know?
No, there's something to it. And I think that, I was raised mainly by my grandma, but I had my stepdad around. I don't remember how many years he was around, but he was tough as nails. He was hard. And he was a Marine, started in the Marines, then he went into the Air Force, retired from the Air Force, but he was tough as nails and he didn't fuck around. And I loved it though. I ate it up. Yeah. And it's funny, if you talk to my older brother, he would be like, fuck that guy. He was a piece of shit. He called me a jerk. Yeah. And he's wounded by that. For me, I took the discipline as, okay, I fucked up. I need to, he's trying to guide me in the right path. You know what I mean? It's a, constructive, correction. And I didn't take any, I don't think I'm wounded by that. I don't think I'm definitely not hurt by it. I think if anything, it calloused my mindset to be like, you take ownership for your mistakes and you just keep moving forward. You don't feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
And so I thank him for that. And if he was he died, but if he was still alive, we would still have a relationship to this day for sure. Cause I'm thankful for that like mindset of it all, being like, no, you're going to own it. And I'm going to tell you like, hey, if you do this, this is going to be the consequence. A lot of times I would do it anyway. Cause I was like, I would weigh my options and be like, well, I guess it's worth the beat down.
Yeah. And it's funny, and maybe this might hit you somewhere, but right. I remember, about a year ago, I went to my dad and talked to him, and my dad's in his upper 80s. And I said, Dad, if there's one thing that I can say, I said, thank you for not drinking when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And he kind of shrugged. My dad's very humble. He doesn't say a lot. He just kind of shrugged. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I would have really been a wreck, because it's funny how in my family, but everybody else, they can have one drink or two drinks or whatever. Man, I just couldn't do it, man. I just had to keep going until I got just totally, thrashed in my own mind. I wasn't like I told you, I wasn't a fighter and a womanizer or anything. I just like to be blitzed in my brain, and I
Right.
was a happy guy. I was telling jokes or whatever, but
Yeah.
but I asked my dad, and I told my dad, thanks for things, And it's funny, I'll share this too, but you know, my mom knew I was suffering. I was very close to my mom. I could share any and everything with my mom, and we had such a wonderful relationship. She's passed away, but about 2 months before she died, she came to me and said, I'm going to give you something. She gave me a surrender chip.
Hmm.
And she says, you got to give up the booze, surrender.
Yeah.
And then the day she passed, the day of her funeral, it's a tradition, where we put something in the casket. And I put that casket in there and kissed that chip. And I said, okay, today's the day I surrender. I surrendered to a 30-pack.
Right.
And it didn't work. And so anyways, I just share that where we talk about, I don't live in regret,
right.
And I'm not fearful. I like I was telling you, that's another quote. I don't fear death. I just don't want to be there when it happens, but I wish she could see me now.
Yeah. Maybe she can though. That's the great unknown. Because we're not dead,
absolutely. But should be proud, just as my family,
absolutely.
My wife, but and you got little kids, and I mean, you keep doing what you're doing, and man, I'm here if you ever need a call. We're not too far away,
For sure, I appreciate that. That was kind of the deal of getting sober for me. Was the other part of it was my kids. Was like, I have an my older boy who's 12. He's from my first marriage, so I can't control what happens in his house when he's with his mom or whatever. But I can control what happens in my house. And I wanted my home to be a stable place. Because for so long in my life, like a big portion of my life, it was so chaotic and so like unstable, and the lack of security or any sense of security whatsoever. And I never wanted my kids to feel that way. I never wanted them to feel unsafe or like, oh, what's going to happen next? And so I had that talk actually with my 12-year-old. We were at a buddy's house, and the guy, he smokes weed or whatever, and I don't care about that stuff. It doesn't. Who cares?
Yeah.
But my son came to me and said, Dad, you better not smoke any weed or whatever. And I was like, we'll talk about this later. So when we left, I told him, I said, have I ever made you feel unsafe? He's like, no. I said, and I never will. You can know that when you're in my home and you're with me and you're in my care, nothing will ever happen to you on my watch, because I will never be out of my mind to where I can't take care of you.
Yeah.
And that's important to me, because I think my sons need to know that, because I think it gives them a foundation to build upon, where it's like, it's structured, there's some discipline, and I'm pushing my kids. I push my 12-year-old, like I told you about the hike we did, and it's like, no, he's going to toe the line, but at the same time, he's going to know I always love him, and he's going to know that I'm here for him. But it's always going to be there will always be a sense of security and stability, for sure.
And I say that, and I'm actually, guilty in my own sense that my daughter, Megan, she's the oldest, daughter. And she said to me, because all my kids were moved out.
Yeah.
And I was fueling by myself. My kids weren't around when I was drinking. Even in my younger days of drinking, I never was like, out of control. Well, anyways, but my oldest daughter, she was a bartender, and so I would tie one on with her here and there. But when she was getting married, she said, Dad, do you think you can't drink very much at the wedding? And I said, are you kidding me? It's open bar. But anyways, it worked out perfect because I was very good. I only had a few, and but just that always resonated in my mind, where my daughter's telling me, Dad, don't drink too much at my wedding.
Right.
Because of what could possibly happen, because she had witnessed some other heavy drinking days, but
kids need that stability even when they're adults, I remember my grandma telling me, as I said, she like raised me for a large portion of my life, and my great grandma lived there too. And my great grandma would like, they would have a daiquiri or whatever,
Yeah.
My grandma definitely was not, like, when I was growing up with her, she was not like a drinker. But she, would have, like, when I came home on leave, from the military or whatever, we would, tie one on. We'd have a couple Heinekens and hang out. But one thing she told me was that when before I was in the picture, they would have a couple drinks and my great grandma's tongue would get, thick. And so she'd be slurring her words and whatever. And she's like, I hated seeing my mother like that. And here she is, like a grown woman. And it's like, she still was like, no, I don't want my mom. I don't like to see my mom like inebriated,
Yeah.
And that's one of the, I guess it would be a regret. My son has seen me drunk, I think once or twice his entire life. And he'll never see it again, though.
Yeah.
That's a guarantee.
Yeah. And it's true, and all my kids have seen me good, bad, and indifferent, but
Right.
I am who I am today, and I have no regrets. I mean, I kind of flushed all that garbage out,
Yeah.
But it's just funny when we start talking and we're doing this, and then we just touch on these things, and all of these things pop into my head. Oh God,
sure.
I have so many stories, so many experiences, and here I am now. Like I said earlier, is that I'm a older guy, and I'm looking to the youth for not direction, but things,
inspiration, whatever,
inspiration and motivation, and whatnot.
If you could give a piece of advice to people that are struggling, like that may have had a stroke as well, and they're in the same boat that you were, couldn't walk, couldn't talk, whatever, what's the pearl of wisdom that you would give them to get through some of their hardest days, you think?
To be honest, I mean, and I mean, I'm only speaking for myself.
Right.
But like you said, I look in the mirror and I said, man, if it's going to happen, you're going to have to make it happen. It's on you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hate to say it's harsh. I mean, because let's face it, you can pass somebody on the ass here and there. Oh, it's better. You're doing no, brother. If you want a piece of my ass, this is how it goes. You have to work your ass off. I don't care what it is. And to this day, Josh, I'm 10 years in, man. I got bands here. I can't tell you how many rubber bands that I've busted because I've gone through 100. Every day I'm doing bands, I'm doing cardio, and that's my life. But guess what? If you look at me, I look normal, but I can't tell you my eyes are all this and that. And there's no self-pity in my heart. But if anybody's struggling, and I do work with people in my community one-on-one where I really get a lot of satisfaction out of that. But I tell them, you got to have faith, you have to have trust, and you got to believe. And you have those three things, and good things happen.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that I'd be saying that I want to go surfing with my son-in-law a year ago.
Right.
Here I'm battling cancer, and I've got this, and I got a hip, and I'm just thinking to my wife right by my side, that ain't shit. And that's why I got this Superman shirt on, man. She says, you are my Superman. You see it there. You see it there. I've got it over there because you know what? In my own eyes, Ben, I know where I've been.
Right.
Ain't nobody going to ever take that, can ever say, man, you are a slacker. And you know it, man. Just going up that Mount Wilson trail, and I'll share this one last story.
Right.
My son, one day, he took his girlfriend. We were going to go up to Mount Wilson, and I hadn't been there to the top.
Yeah. So it's a 14-mile hike for the listeners, like 14 miles there and back.
Yeah. So, and it's steep, and it's tough.
And elevation gain is tough for sure.
Yeah. So anyways, his girlfriend, she stops a third of the way in at Manzanita and says, I'm going to wait here. And my son, she says, you going with me? And I said, well, hell yeah. And he said, give me the water. I'll carry the water, and I'll carry everything. Because he likes to put all this shit. He straps it on. Let's go. And next thing I know, I said, shit, where the hell did he go? He left me in the dust, and I'm getting thirsty. It's in July, and I'm hot, and I'm sweating like a dog, and I need the water.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, man, I'm getting pissed now. I said, son of a bitch, how could you do this to me?
Yeah.
I have no other choice. I can't go back. She didn't have the water. He had the water. He's going to the top. So I get all the way up there and I just was throwing these F-bombs. You are the worst guide. And he says, whoa. You made it. Here's the water. And I said, that's not the point. I could have died. He says, you made it. And I thought, oh my God. And so anyways, we go back down, and for 2 weeks, man, my legs were just, I've never had that kind of pain in my life. But the point was that put your mind to it, man, and you could do it, even if you don't want to, but you can do it. It's, I'm finding this stuff out now, man.
Your mind is more, I think the mind is more powerful than most people will give it credit for. And when you think you're tapped, when you think you're done, I think David Goggins says it best, like when you think you're done, you're at your absolute, like you're just done. You're tapped, the tank is empty. You're only 40% there. And it's I've seen it, I've witnessed it, that's true for myself and for other people that I've interviewed and whatever. And hearing your story, like with the stroke, with the cancer, with the hip replacement, with the drug overdose, and all these things, it's like you keep living because you keep pushing and you keep striving and you're not quitting. And the body would have given up a long time ago, but your mind isn't ready for it. It's like
that's right, and you are so right. The mind can also heal.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not a freak of nature by no means. But when I was diagnosed with stage 4 bone marrow cancer, and I believed that I could actually use my mind to help me. Now, whether it did or didn't, I couldn't tell you. But damn it, here I am sitting in front of you, man. I'm in remission and I'm kicking ass. And in a few months, I'm going to be surfing, man. How, what, why, or whatever. Somebody is watching over me. Or maybe I am Superman. I just don't have the kryptonite.
What's your ideas on having a hobby for mindset? Because I'm looking around. We're in Dave's office right now, and there's all these pictures, like these paintings, and I'm like, oh shit! Like, you're looking at it, it's like, oh, do you like go and get these at IKEA or something? And he's like, no, I painted these. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Okay, so the inspiration into that, and look at the top one. I love that one. A wise owl. That's me. I'm a wise owl.
I like
then
that.
The other one there that, you got to think about half full, the odd number. But anyways, each one of these, and the reason, that's where I express my mind. My mind comes out. And if you know now, the last ones I've been doing like that one there, push yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you, Josh. You know that better than anybody. Yeah. Or the strongest hearts have their inspirational things, balance, and I just love putting the colors out there and just letting it flow. And
I dig it.
Constant
reminder.
You have to have an outlet. Before, my outlet would be stretching for a nice cocktail or something. But now, when I put something down on it, and you know what, the way I look at it, once I put that brush stroke there, it's there for life.
Yep.
And ain't nobody gonna duplicate it. That's it,
Yeah.
And they mean so much to me. And it's funny as hell. It just my mind. But if you look at that one there, what's that say?
This one or this one?
That one.
Attitude of gratitude.
Right? But look it says attitude of gratitude.
Oh yeah, it does.
Nice. And see, so. Yeah. So oh my God, my daughter, but you really get into this stuff. And then I said, oh my God, you're right. I looked at it. I said, shit, I left out an I and a T, but I laugh at myself, man. For sure. But the mind and all these sayings in here, just powerful things, you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. Yep. And I can tell you that it's like, I remember one night at Methodist hanging onto the grab rail and I told my wife, I'm going to go to the other side. No, you can't. And I walked just like a little baby,
Yeah.
And I grabbed on this side and I did it and I kept doing it back and forth. And anyways, I got better where I could walk. And actually one day I was sitting there and I told my wife, I'm going to try walking all the way down to the hall. And I mean, this is like 100 feet.
Yeah.
And boy, I'm walking, and I walked right past the nurse's station. And all of a sudden I get to the other side, and all these patients are screaming, "You can't be out there walking. You don't have your harness." And people are just screaming and shit, And it was funny. It's like, I know, but I got to the point where I could walk without being noticed, like having a deficit or anything. And that's one of the things too, where I really have to work every day on my mindset, where if I'm inside of a supermarket or I'm inside of a store or whatever, I don't like being around a lot of crowds because I feel like I'm not normal.
Right.
Are they looking at me? Because sometimes, my left arm kind of hits like the rack or something. And it's just, one of those things where every day that I strap on my shoes, man, and I sit and say, hey, it's going to be a good day, and I put my mind to work, and I'm not done. Like I said earlier, man, I have such a desire to want to really live, to see my grandkids graduate, and to be living proof that, like you said, I told you so. Don't tell me no, because I don't take no for an answer.
Absolutely. Don't let anybody put limitations on you.
Exactly. Especially when they were telling my wife, well, you know what? He's going to be deaf in his ear, and he's got all these, he's going to be screwed up and shit. And I'm sitting there like this and that thinking, what the fuck? And so anyways, here I am today, man. I'm just enjoying life and just one happy guy.
Thank you so much, Dave, honestly, for coming on the show and being willing to share your story, because I really do think it's going to resonate with a lot of people.
Well, hey, thanks for having me.
For sure. If there's anything that I could ever do to help you, by all means, you got my number.
I do, but here's the best thing. You keep doing what you're doing, man. These podcasts, I eat that shit up. But I will tell you, you will hear from me in July. When I'm sitting there, you're going to say, wow, you are more cut than you were.
I like it.
But hey, man, I got dreams, and here I am, going to be 59 next week. Man, I'm going to be one stud at 60. I can guarantee you that. I'm going to try anyways.
Moving and shaking. No trying, you'll do it.
And by the time you'll be much bigger than you are now, and you're going to sit there and say, hey, Judge, I need you to come back. I want to do that. And that time we'll be able to do that round of golf. I promised you.
Let's do it.
All right, brother.
I'll talk to you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to My Backstory. Stay motivated and stay connected off the show. Follow at my_backstory_ to be a part of the journey to recovery and to see where your story goes. Or visit us online at hereismybackstory.com.